All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the For the College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick here, our 2023 preview and prediction for the Clemson Tigers. Looking at this coaching staff, Dabo Swinney, 161-39 record through 15 seasons. They made the stunning addition of Garrett Riley to be the offensive play caller this past offseason. The 2022 Broyles Award winner with TCU. And Wes Goodwin is back for a second year as the defensive play caller. 12th total year with Swinney and the Tigers. Superstar OC / number one QB in recruiting that was recently, known as falling off. Nick is starting to really pick up the pace, especially the last couple of months. Looking at this offense, the last 2 years, they've just completely fallen off a cliff. And obviously last year was better, up to 30th in points per game, had some more stability on the ground, had some more balance overall. This was still far from where they want to be in terms of being able to just compete in this conference. Cade Klubnik, he's going to take over under center. DJ Uyunglele, he finally transfers out. Things did not pan out for him. He was supposed to probably be a Heisman finalist 2 years ago. He's now in Corvallis. In the portal, they only lost 5 guys, 2 at wide receiver, and of course the only add was Paul Tyson. This team, led by Dabo, does not entertain the portal one bit, Nick, and I think that's certainly something we can touch on as to why this team's starting kind of lag behind. Back to Klubnik, though. This is a guy who was pegged as the number one QB recruit. Great accuracy, touch, and placement is elite. He can make all the throws. He's a good athlete, good off schedule. Legs are certain to be used in this offense. Versus Tennessee, he really struggled against pressure, failed to step up at times, took too many sacks, made some big mental errors in that game, seemed overwhelmed at times. And again, he was hesitant with pressure in his face. This is still a player, though. That's still, it's one of his first career starts against a really good volunteer football team. Klubnik gives you shades of Trevor Lawrence, at least when it comes to this situation where there was a veteran ahead of him and they waited just a little bit. Klubnik gets the keys a little bit later than Lawrence did, but the expectation is going to be the same, Nick.
Certainly, Cade Klubnik is a fantastic quarterback. Has that 5-star potential that they really look for in Clemson. Shades of Trevor Lawrence, certainly. 195, fantastic size for me. Yeah, he looked a little uncomfortable in that Orange Bowl, but you think about it getting, kind of thrust into that spotlight there. Tough position to be in, certainly. He's dynamic on the ground. He's a good pocket passer as well. I like the arm strength, very accurate. 61% completion percentage in a small sample size. Very solid numbers for me with Cade Klubnik. I think he's a very talented quarterback. I'm very excited to see what he can do. And overall, I'm excited to see what this offense can do. Clemson, over the past couple seasons, you and I have kind of made the comment over and over again that the recruiting has kind of fallen off. They've got back on it recently. They've landed the top player in the class next year, as well as some more 5-stars. So Dabo's kind of hitting it again, but he's avoided the portal. He hates the portal. He seems to be just absolutely against the portal. The only portal work they've done recently is bringing in backup quarterbacks, bringing in former Alabama and Arizona State quarterback Paul Tyson. He does not like the portal at all. Dabo needs to adjust, I think, in my opinion. He has to adjust and start using the portal to his advantage. Otherwise, he's going to fall behind, and Clemson will find themselves kind of stuck in the same position where they've been the last couple of seasons, where they've been on the outside looking in the playoff hunt. I think Dabo's got to adjust and grab the portal. But right now, I think Cade Klubnik is a fantastic quarterback, a great guy to lead this Clemson offense, and I really like the size and the arm strength.
It's not just the portal, it's also NIL. I do believe they're starting to invest a little bit more in that, but it's certainly something that's lagging behind compared to these other elite programs. And the biggest flaw with the recruiting has just been the wide receiver position. I think it was last year, the number I said was they had 7 players total that were ranked in last year's recruiting class. I believe that is the correct number, and of course Klubnik was one of them. So the recruiting has not been very good at all. Antonio Williams really stepped up last year, though, at wide receiver. Some good awareness to get open, great concentration in tight windows, runs plenty of short routes, has nice toughness to secure the ball while taking a blow. Bo Collins, good at tracking the ball downfield, some good strength, a good size and length combo at 6'3", 210. Doesn't have grain-breaking speed, but he still got some positive attributes. Noble Johnson, a freshman, 6'2", 205, should provide some speed. Jake Brinkstool, he's good at getting first downs. This is not a deep receiving core, Nick, but then you're going to insert Garrett Riley, who is going to bring this air raid attack to Clemson. Fast-paced, up-tempo offense, speed, and more spacing are going to be some of those principles that are going to get involved. TCU had a great offense a season ago. Obviously, I think the talent there was a little bit more than what Clemson has here. That's really going to help offset some of the woes, I think. But at the same time, this new scheme might not be beneficial right away because they do have a lack of athletes here, mainly at this wide receiver position.
Certainly grabbing Riley out of to be the next coordinator is a very huge move here for Clemson. I love the move a lot. I think Garrett Riley is a fantastic young mind in college football. I wanted to see him at Alabama. It didn't quite work out. He ends up in Clemson. I think Clemson have made a home run hire here. I think he has some solid pieces to build with, but I think he's going to have to hit the recruiting hard and get some more pieces. I think there's going to be a lot of tough adjustments, like you said, some woes early on as they kind of adjust and figure this out. Antonio Williams, I like the way he stepped up as a true freshman last year, 600 yards receiving for him, 4 scores. not bad numbers. Bo Collins, I like him, 17 yards per catch, 373 yards total, 5 scores for him. So I think he's not a bad piece to have in your team. Adam Randall as well had limited appearance. The freshman, he looks to step up again as a sophomore now at this point. So I certainly think this wide receiving core is very shallow. The depth chart's not looking very deep at all, and that's certainly something that's concerning when you look at this team. Is you got to have somebody for Klubnik to throw the ball to. If someone gets hurt, they can find themselves in serious trouble here.
Now, the best part of their offense is they do return Will Shipley, 1,100-plus yards a season ago, 38 receptions. This is a bigger back that is effective at the goal line at 5'11", 205, good inside slasher that finds a seam of vision, tough through contact. Has proven to be a reliable pass catcher as well, some good initial burst, pretty good athlete with some impressive bounce and leap. I think this is a good player all around. He's going to be the cornerstone of this offense. Phil Maffa's there to help him out. For some reason, they have him as the kick returner. I feel like they could probably get some more speed back there. But that's just kind of what we're at right now with this Clemson offense when it comes to playmakers, Nick. Then you're going to look at the offensive line. Tristan Leah hasn't seen the field much over the last 2 years. One of those 5 stars they picked up over some recent classes. Good footwork and technique, some nice balance. He covers a lot of ground, plays with a wide base, but oftentimes overshoots. He can sometimes struggle versus stunts. 6'6", 315. At center, Will Putnam played exactly 1,000 snaps this past year. He was a quality interior lineman for them. Blake Miller was a good run blocker. At tackle, he might move outside to that left tackle spot. He did have 10 penalties, though. Walker Parks was a flat-out liability at guard. Marcus Tate was pretty average. Good size, though. All these guys are about 315 pounds or bigger. Marcus Tate, 6'5", 325. Another thing that's, kind of flown under the radar with this football team, Nick, is they've never really been great on the offensive line, and that's something that they have not tried to, try and find any balance to steer away from. For example, they played Georgia a couple years ago. It's like they're going to attack the boundaries to try and get away from these offensive line woos. They didn't try that one bit. So there's been really no creativity here to try and get rid of these offensive line woos, and they've not been doing a great job of recruiting at this position. So another thing the scheme will certainly, I think, help with is that more spacing and some more speed to try and give these guys a boost.
The scheme will certainly help negate the problems in the offensive line. Will Shipley's a fantastic, dynamic back to have in your backfield. Great to see him returning over 1,100 yards on the ground. 15 scores for him, 38 receptions, 242 yards receiving for him as well. Phil Maffa's not a bad number 2 back, 500 yards on the ground for him last year, 4 scores. So like that 1-2 punch there. I get concerned about this offensive line. They did not look amazing last year. They certainly did not recruit amazingly in the offensive line department. Some of these guys like Blake Miller, they have to step up. I'm looking at the whole left side. I think Marcus Tate has to step up as well. I think I need to see more out of these guys. Really, it's Tristan Leigh that's the one big piece there that needs to kind of step up too as well. I like the footwork on him at 6'6", 315. He's a very talented piece, but this offensive line has not been great over the past couple of seasons. It's never been really been a staple of Clemson, and it certainly finds them in trouble against those bigger, more physical SEC teams and the Ohio States of college football when you get to the playoffs.
And now I think the biggest thing that needs to improve with this team, obviously everything could use a bit of an improvement, but chemistry and playmaking in the passing game. I remember 2 years ago watching DJ Uiagalelei throw the ball. They could not even complete a simple slant route, and that seems to be a problem for them at times. They did score 36 points per game in conference, but the inconsistencies, only had 14 against Notre Dame, didn't play very well, 30 points against South Carolina, but they also had, less than 100 yards passing or something like that. This offense has had plenty of problems. They were stalemated against Syracuse at home. That was an embarrassing look, I thought. So this offense certainly has had some issues for, the last 2 years. They did have 50-plus against Wake Forest. So they certainly show up from time to time, but it's been very far and few over the last 2 years, Nick. I'm going to go with a B. I definitely think that maybe is too high, but I do respect the numbers they put up last year. I think Klubnik's going to be a good answer for them. And this new scheme is also going to allow some of these playmakers to kind of get unleashed a little bit. And of course, having Will Shipley's not a bad player either. B for me. I'm not really sure where the ceiling is this year. It's going to be fun to watch him on Saturdays. They'll try to figure it out.
I agree. I think a B is kind of where this is, a B minus potentially if you want to put it there. I think Klubnik's a fantastic quarterback, but I just worry the guys he's throwing to are going to let him down. I think Shipley's a good dynamic back to have in the backfield, but Antonio Williams and Bo Collins, I think they're very respectable, number 3, number 2 pieces, but to have those guys be 1 and 2, I think that's just not good enough. I think you need to find that superstar wide receiver. They just really lack that sort of punch there on offense.
Look at the defensive side of the ball. When Brett Venables departed for Oklahoma last year, this was another focal point for this football team. So how would the defense do? And 21 points per game is a bit of a regression. It's still top 25 in college football, and they're still great against the run. This was certainly a different unit, though, when we watched them play. They lost 6 guys in the portal. They didn't add any. Malcolm Green is probably the only notable departure there in the back end. Defensive line depth will be tested a tad bit more than in the past. Despite the strong pass rush, secondary still struggled. But looking at the D line, it's still one of the nation's best. Peter Woods, True freshman, really impressed in the spring. Has that versatility. He can line up anywhere on the D-line, an explosive athlete. He can be used as an edge rusher at 6'3", 259. Rook Ahorohoro, a good penetrator with a great first step. He slants in the creases very well. Still new to football, so for him to be this good while he's new, not just to this position but the game, is pretty impressive. He does a good job of freeing up running lanes. Anchor in the run game. He still needs a little bit of help. Overall, though, some good athletic gifts, lots of upsides in terms of technicalities with him. Tyler Davis, strong balance of power and athleticism, great at pushing gaps. Love the hand violence, very nimble on his feet for 6'2", 300. And Xavier Thomas, he's been around forever now. He's really battled with health the last couple of years. This is still a veteran pass rusher of immense burst. Nice first step. He can move laterally. He's a pass rush specialist mainly that's really struggled against the run. He hasn't shown much versatility, but he's still an asset as a blitzer. What are your initial thoughts on this Clemson football team, Nick? Because obviously last year it didn't go all great for them. Gave up 263 rushing against Notre Dame, 200 plus against Florida State. Those were really the only blemishes for the run defense, but that's still something we're not expecting to see from Clemson one bit. And when Venables, with him not being on the sideline, we certainly noticed it at times.
I agree. I think there was a noticeable drop off. I think it's nice to notice for this Clemson fans. I think you should take solace in understanding that all four of these guys on the front lines are graduate seniors, right? These guys are experienced. They've been around the program for several years now. They have good experience under their belt in the program. They've been around in Clemson. It's a very nice thing to have. I really like that a lot. Tyler Davis, I think he's the star of this, of this defensive line at 31 total tackles, 9.5 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks for him. Very solid numbers. Rook Ahorohoro is a very talented piece with 23 total tackles, 8 tackles for loss, and 4 sacks for him. Not a bad number at all. Maskell as well. He has 19 total tackles, 30.5 tackles for loss. Xavier Thomas only played in 3 games last year, but he still managed 2 sacks and 2 tackles for loss in those 3 games. If he can stay fully healthy, he's a very dynamic weapon to have on the defensive line. I think overall this front four that we just listed here is a fantastic unit that's got great experience. They're veteran guys, good veteran leadership, and then you also have Peter Woods, who's a dynamic sort of true freshman star out there that's on the bench that could definitely get some playing time this year and be a very big impact player early on.
Now, Wes Goodwin, I do think he's going to do great in this role. High-end football IQ, plenty of energy. I definitely felt like he was a great replacement, a guy they promoted within the program. Great call by Dabo there on that one. I think he's really going to shine this year. And what's going to make his job a little bit easier is they have the nation's top linebacking duo in Barrett Carter and Jeremiah Trotter, 2 guys that were highly recruited 2 classes ago, and they finally got on the field this year. And they did better than expected, even though the expectations were certainly high. For Carter, athleticism allows him to cover ground and coverage, lined up in the slot for 331 snaps, showcasing great versatility and some nimbleness at 6'1", 225. Has bad intentions when tracking against opposing ball carriers when he's at full speed. Good movement skills and closing burst. He really thrived as a weak side backer. And his versatility is pretty unmatched in college football, Nick. Trotter, he showcased some good eyes and coverage in his own right, was very effective on stunts, some good play recognition from him. He hits with authority, good speed and pursuit, a very sturdy tackler, handled bigger linemen well. He's a big difference maker for them with a Mike linebacker that made plays in all facets of the game. And then Wade Woodaz, a guy that played every game as a freshman last year, showcased great versatility as he can play in the box, free safety, or in the slot. This linebacking group is probably the most versatile in the nation, and I think it is the best top to bottom.
It's a fantastic linebacker group. When you have 2 of these guys return that got great experience last year, it's really positive to have both these guys, now are juniors. They got some seasons under their belt. Fantastic. Jeremiah Trotter, leading tackler, returning 89 total tackles for him, 13.5 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks for him. A fantastic number. Was tied for the team lead in sacks last year, 2 interceptions, 5 pass breakups. Trotter can do it all. Very versatile. I love him a lot. I think he's one of the most incredible linebackers we see in college football right now. And then Carter as well, fantastic piece. 73 total tackles for him, 10.5 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks, 2 interceptions, 8 pass breakups. 2 dynamic linebackers that Clemson have here that are so talented. They both get after the ball. They make plays when they can. They're very talented players, and this is a fantastic unit to have. And these guys are very trustworthy. They're solid guys to have in your backfield.
Looking at the Clemson secondary, this unit's certainly been a bit of a struggle fest unit for them over the past couple of years. Haven't exactly been poor, but they've certainly left a lot of potential on the table. Good news for them, though, is they've returned a slew of veterans led by Nate Wiggins. He really grew over the back half of last season from his cornerback position. Capable of laying the boom and run support, some quick feet with some great change of direction. Way too many flags, though, for the entire football team to really like. Sheridan Jones, on the other hand, and a very impressive athlete. He can carry routes vertically. He gives up too much space in zone, though, and he bites on double moves. Length and movement are certainly some positives for him. So this team certainly needs to get better when it comes to man coverage. Andrew Macumba, he was also one of those former 5-stars, a versatile safety. He was beat up all of last season. He's a very tough guy. Certainly looking to get him back to 100% this year. A very fluid, explosive athlete with some great burst when it comes to closing. R.J. Minkins, I think this guy's going to be one of the most improved players in college football this coming season. He can anchor the slot, or he can play that strong safety position. A great tackler, reliable cover guy. Isn't as fluid to his size. He's 6 foot 210, so he's a bit of a package player. Malcolm Green, of course, transfers out, so maybe a full-time nickel for R.J. Minkins. Former 5-stars Jaden Lucas, Toriano Pride provides some good depth. And I think Jalen Phillips at safety, he's a reliable tackler. He's second on that team in that mark. So I think they have a nice, group here. I like the options they have. I'd love to see them get better when it comes to playing man-to-man coverage. All year long, though, they just weren't very good in terms of pass defense. You've seen early on in the year they got burned against Wake Forest. Wiggins specifically in that game just had a horrible day. And then they weren't any better late in the year against Tennessee. They certainly were not good in terms of opposing efficiency. South Carolina, they were throwing it all over them. And then there's numerous games they gave up 250-plus yards over the year. So this pass defense certainly needs to take that step forward, Nick, and I think they certainly will.
I like Nate Wiggins a lot. I want to see more consistency out of him. I think he got a lot better the second half of the season, but he can find that full balance and play a full 13 games consistently. I'd like to see out of him. Wiggins, 29 total tackles, 13 pass breakups, plus an interception for him. Great numbers. He did return that interception for a touchdown, 98 yards. Very impressive numbers. Andrew Macumba, a player we were high on last year. You and I both talked about it at length in the preseason. 54 total tackles for him, 3 pass breakups. I think that is pretty close to where we thought he'd be. I think you can see a little bit more of Macumba this year. I think he's continued to grow as a player and be that sort of veteran figure they need. Sheridan Jones as well as another not a bad piece to have. 27 total tackles for him, 1.5 tackles for loss. Jalen Phillips, I like him a lot. 74 total tackles last year, 3 pass breaks, and interception for him. So I think he's a good safety. I like him in the back there. Overall, I think the secondary will play better this year. I think, they certainly have disappointed in recent years. The numbers have not quite been where they wanted. 231.7 pass yards per game, 76 in the nation is not where they wanted to be on defense. I'd like to see that number get a lot lower. Certainly, I think it's possible this year. I think this secondary group's got a lot of experience here. They've played together and they continue to grow and develop as a unit together and cut that number down, close to 200, probably below 200 if possible.
Mickens was the only defensive back with more than 1 interception last year. As a team, they had 13. Carter and Trotter, they had 2 each, so those linebackers doing a lot of heavy lifting for them. So some more ball production certainly needed from the secondary. I'm going to go with an A. I think this is a great unit. 21 points per game. I think that's something they certainly want to see go down back into the teens. I think it will. I think we'll see them approach top 30 in most categories, including yards and, again, points per game. And I think we'll see a big improvement against the passing yards. And I think we'll see them return to the top 10 against the run. A lot of improvement on the table this year, Nick. I don't want to be disappointed. But when this team has guys like Barrett Carter, Wade Woodaz, Andrew Macumba, these are Venables-style players that are still here in this program. They're staying true to Wes Goodwin, Dabo Sweeney. They're Clemson Tigers, and they want to play hard football. And I think they're going to make great impacts this year. For top to bottom is going to be one of the nation's best defenses.
It is a very solid defense top to bottom. I think they have a lot of great potential here. I think Trotter and Carter are fantastic players. Macumba and Wiggins are 2 guys I really love in the secondary, 2 of my favorite corners in the nation. I think both of them together, if Wiggins can find a more consistent season and balance him out fully and gets to that full performance level he was at in the second half of the season, I think Wiggins will be a fantastic piece this year. This is a very good defense. If they can cut the numbers down, get that 20 points per game, lower than that, get in the teens, get the pass yards per game in the 200s, and keep that rush yards per game and the yards per game sort of in that same area. I think this is an A unit for me, very talented, good coaching as well.
With the schedule preview and the prediction, the offense welcomes a new scheme that will benefit any offensive line moves with the tempo and the spread out schematics. They still have to be good, though, so that's something to monitor, but should certainly see a bit of an increase in that area. The lack of athletes is a concern for the scheme to thrive, though. The running game will be heavily involved. Shipley is similar back to that of Kendre Miller, who had a great year at TCU a season ago. Klubnik will have some occasional mistakes, but overall will enhance the playmaking at the quarterback position. The defensive line depth will be something to monitor, but overall the front seven is completely loaded, one of the top 3 or 5 in college football. Secondary gained experience and got better in spurts. The secondary will be well improved. Some reinforcements will step up, and the duo of Jones and Wiggins should keep growing on the outside. Tons of versatility on this defense, one of the nation's best units. I think they're going to slip up week 1, Nick. Talk about a new scheme. They have to go play Mike Elko's defense week 1 on a Monday night against Duke. Riley Leonard at quarterback. I think they're really going to have a day there, and I think they're going to upset them as almost double. What are they, 10-point underdogs or something? I think Duke wins that one outright, and I think October 21st at Miami. The Hurricanes are going to bring the heat in the trenches, and that's a big struggle area, at least on the offensive side of the ball for Clemson. I think Miami's going to put them in check. They're 10-2 for me. I do have them beating Florida State in an early season CFP game that has a lot of implications. What is that, week 4 there? I think they beat the Seminoles. I think the defense is going to show up at home. 10-2 for me. But if they do lose to the Noles, then this could be a tough year. Potentially looking at 9 wins, maybe even less if they slip up somewhere else. But overall, pretty easy schedule, Nick, outside of the 3 in the games that we talked about at NC State versus Notre Dame. Maybe something to watch, and I think the Gamecocks will be tough. But overall, this is a schedule they should win 10 games.
I agree. This is scheduled to win 10 games. I actually have them beating Miami and losing to Florida State. I think Florida State just too much power on offense for this team. I think they also have such a dominant defensive line. They'll find their way to get through what is a pretty weak Clemson offensive line to be able to create really a hell for this Clemson offense against Florida State at home. I like them to lose to Duke as well. Like you said, I think I agree with every point you made on that Monday night at Duke. I think it's going to be a tough matchup on a Monday night. They're going to be caught lacking early on. All eyes are going to be on them. National televised game. I think they're going to find themselves in trouble. I think Duke's going to win that game. I like that a lot. They certainly could have some fits at South Carolina. I think that's a tough place to play. South Carolina has a lot of energy after beating them last year. They're kind of tired of being the little brother in the rivalry. Clemson has dominated South Carolina for the better part of 10 years, and the Gamecocks get one last year and knocked them out of playoff contention. I think the Gamecocks are going to be hungry and try and get another win this year. I just think that there is a little too much power on that defense against South Carolina in Columbia, but that game's certainly close. That's a toss-up for me right now. So certainly I think 9-3 is a lot more realistic than 11-1 for me right now. I think overall, this Clemson team is very talented. The schedule is not very difficult. At home to Notre Dame's interesting, but I think they should be fine there. At NC State, some question marks. I think they should be fine there as well. You're highlighting your 4 big games at Miami, at South Carolina, Florida State, at Duke. I think those are tough road draws. I think they get the job done in Miami. I think they do beat the Hurricanes, who you're a little higher on than I am, but I think this is a very overall not a bad schedule for Clemson. Pretty easy. I think this team should be in a pretty high bowl game, probably a New Year's Six bowl. But Clemson fans, they want to be in the playoffs. Going back to the New Year's Six and not making the playoffs this year, a couple years in a row without being in the playoffs would be a disappointment for Clemson fans. I think people are getting a little upset with Dabo for not, welcoming the portal, not welcoming additions, NIL. And it's really starting to hamper this Clemson program. If they miss the playoffs a couple years in a row here and struggle to really make that national impact like they used to, it certainly is disappointing for Clemson fans.
I think the thing that upsets me the most is when you look at a game like Duke, people will probably laugh and be like, yeah, no way the Blue Devils beat Clemson. And it's like, yeah, the defense is great. They can compete with anybody in college football. When you look at the offensive side of the ball, though, this is not a scary unit by any means. It's just very upsetting. I don't think a lot of people have caught up to how poor this unit really is. They can't go out and outscore anybody. I don't have that confidence in them being able to do this, especially against Riley Leonard, a deep unit. So that's something I certainly want people to more focus on this year, and I think that will certainly be true on that Monday night. Again, I think being 10-point underdogs is just absolutely ridiculous, Nick, because this offense is just not very scary at all. It was a B grade for both of us.
I agree. I think Riley Leonard and Duke have the opportunity to put up a ton of points week 1 at home. That crowd's going to be crazy. There's a lot of enthusiasm in Durham for this Duke team this year. I think that Clemson's going to kind of snooze their way into it. They expect to beat Duke every single year with ease, But Mike Elko is building a program there. The fans are going to be loud on that Monday night. Like I said, national televised game. I think Clemson's going to get really exposed on national television to be shown that this offense just does not really live up to the standards. I think Clemson fans and CFP fans as a whole are in for a rude awakening on that Monday night.
Should be a great chess match, Mike Elko against Garrett Riley's air raid. Can't wait for it to happen, Nick. Week 1, we're getting closer and closer. Appreciate you joining me today to break down the Tigers.
Absolutely looking forward to seeing this season in the ACC. Can the Tigers get back to being the powerhouse in the ACC they are and get back to the playoffs?
Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.